The academy floated high above the sparkling planet of Viridian, a place where the galaxy's most talented young beings came to learn the ways of space, science, and survival. The halls were alive with the chatter of students from dozens of worlds. Some had scales that shimmered like liquid metal, some had wings that fluttered softly, and some had skin that glowed faintly in the dim light. Among them walked Lyra, a young alien girl with smooth lavender skin and silver eyes that reflected everything around her. She had always been one of the best in her class. Her movements were precise, her mind sharp, and her pride in her skills undeniable. Today, however, there was a different kind of excitement in the air. The instructors announced that a new student would be joining them, a human. Lyra had heard stories about humans before. They were rare, fragile creatures, usually too weak to compete with alien species. Her friends whispered eagerly about it, curious to see how this human would perform. Lyra, however, felt a mix of amusement and mild disdain. When the classroom doors opened, a boy stepped inside. He looked ordinary. Brown hair fell across his forehead, and his bright eyes darted nervously around the room. His hands trembled slightly as he carried his bag. Lyra's first instinct was to laugh. He looked like he might break if someone bumped into him too hard. Her friends leaned in, whispering jokes. "Look at him," one said. "He can't even stand straight. How will he survive training?" Lyra smirked, unable to hide her amusement. She raised her head high, letting her silver eyes gleam. "We'll see how long he lasts," she said. Humans aren't made for this kind of academy. The first days were exactly what Lyra expected. Ethan, the human, struggled with even the simplest exercises. In zero-gravity training, he stumbled and floated awkwardly, bumping into walls and tripping over his own feet. When learning alien languages, he mispronounced words, sometimes causing students to snicker. Every day, Lyra found new reasons to laugh. She mimicked his movements during breaks and whispered jokes with her friends, feeling the rush of superiority. But even as she mocked him, she noticed something strange. No matter how hard he fell, Ethan didn't give up. Each night he stayed behind in the empty training halls, practicing alone. He would repeat drills over and over, sometimes falling again, but always getting back up. His determination was quiet, almost invisible, yet it was there. Lyra felt an unusual stir of curiosity mixed with irritation. One afternoon during a combat exercise, Lyra pushed Ethan lightly to see how he would react. He fell hard, sliding across the polished floor. Lyra's friends laughed, but Ethan simply wiped the sweat from his forehead, stood up slowly, and said, "I'll try again." His voice was calm, steady, without any hint of complaint. Lyra blinked. That simple sentence stayed in her mind. Humans, she thought, weren't just weak. Maybe they were stubborn. Maybe they had some strange kind of strength she didn't understand. But she shook it off and laughed again, masking the unease that had begun to grow inside her. At mealtimes, Ethan sat quietly, often alone, eating slowly while observing the other students. Lyra noticed how he listened, how he watched, how he learned from the smallest mistakes of others. It was unusual. Most alien students were quick to show off, to dominate, to prove they were the best. Humans, she realized, didn't seem interested in showing off. Despite herself, Lyra began paying attention to him more. She caught him correcting small errors she hadn't noticed. She noticed how he calculated movements before acting. She even noticed the way he never gave a mean word back when someone mocked him. How he treated everyone, even the smallest or clumsiest, with patience. Yet for now, she still laughed at him openly, trying to keep her pride intact. But deep down, a tiny seed of respect began to grow. She couldn't yet admit it. Not to anyone, not even herself. But something about this human boy was different, and Lyra, for the first time in her life, felt a mix of curiosity and fear towards someone she had once considered beneath her. The academy buzzed on, unaware of the quiet tension growing between the top student and the human who seemed ordinary in every way, but who, somehow, was not ordinary at all. Days turned into weeks, and the academy's halls were filled with the constant rhythm of training, laughter, and the occasional clash of students testing their skills. Lyra continued her routine, always moving with grace, always excelling. She was the star of her class, admired by some, envied by others. And yet, one presence began to irritate her more than any rival ever had. Ethan, the human boy who refused to break. He still struggled with even the simplest tasks. In combat training, he often missed his target by a mile, tripped over obstacles, or fumbled with equipment. In zero-gravity exercises, he spun out of control, hitting walls and stumbling across platforms. Lyra made sure she never missed a chance to point it out. She laughed at his mistakes, whispered insults to her friends, and made mock demonstrations of his failures. "Watch this," she said one morning during training. "He's going to fall again, just wait." Ethan did fall just as she predicted, sliding across the floor awkwardly. The students around them laughed. Lyra's friends joined in, pointing and shaking their heads. It felt good to have the spotlight, to watch someone fail where she excelled. Pride burned warmly in her chest. But then something unexpected happened. Ethan stood up. Slowly, carefully, he wiped the sweat from his forehead, adjusted his equipment, and went back into the exercise. He didn't rush. He didn't complain. He simply tried again, step by step, learning from each mistake. Lyra blinked, startled. His calm persistence was different from anyone she had seen before. Most students would give up, scream in frustration, or storm away after repeated failure. Not him. Every failure seemed to fuel him, not discourage him. During breaks, she noticed him sitting quietly in the corner, studying old manuals and holographic training guides. Sometimes he asked instructors questions, carefully listening to every detail. Lyra saw the patience in him, the way he absorbed information slowly but surely. Something about him began to gnaw at her pride. Her mockery grew sharper, almost as if she needed to convince herself that he was weak. She laughed louder when he tripped in language class, imitated his awkward posture during lunch, and whispered jokes that made the other students chuckle. She wanted to dismiss him, to keep him small in her mind. But every time she looked at him, she saw him rise again, always learning, always improving. One day in the middle of a sparring match, Lyra pushed him harder than usual. He fell, hitting the floor with a painful thud. Lyra's friends erupted in laughter, but she noticed something strange. He didn't cry out. He didn't complain. He looked at her with calm, steady eyes and said, "I'll try again." Lyra's laughter caught in her throat. There was no fear in him, no anger, no resentment, just quiet determination. Something inside her shifted, though she refused to admit it. Humans, she realized, were not like other students. Their strength was not in skill, not in agility, not in clever tricks, it was in their spirit. Later that night, while the academy slept under the glow of distant stars, Lyra found herself wandering the training hall. She watched Ethan practice alone. His movements were slow, unrefined, sometimes clumsy, but there was a rhythm to them, a persistence that made every strike, every jump, every step count. He fell, yes, but he rose again, each time a little stronger, a little more confident. Lyra felt a strange mix of emotions: admiration, frustration, and something she couldn't name. Her pride, her belief that she was superior, clashed with a quiet recognition that this human boy was extraordinary in a way she had never expected. The next day, during language exercises, Lyra whispered to a friend, trying to mask her curiosity with mockery. "Why do you think he keeps trying? He's clearly weak." Her friend shrugged. "Maybe humans are stubborn." Lyra laughed, but the sound felt hollow. She couldn't stop thinking about the quiet strength she had seen in Ethan. It was unlike anything she had experienced. Unlike her, unlike her friends, unlike any alien student at the academy. By the end of the week, Lyra realized she had been watching him more than she had intended. She had laughed at his mistakes, mocked his weakness, and tried to keep him small, but he refused to stay that way. And for the first time, Lyra felt a flicker of respect, buried under the layers of her pride and teasing. She didn't want to admit it, not yet, but something about Ethan's persistence unsettled her. He was human, fragile in appearance yet unbreakable in spirit. And that realization, though she wouldn't confess it to anyone, made her question everything she thought she knew about strength, skill, and the creatures she had always considered weaker than herself. The academy buzzed around them, unaware of the quiet tension growing between the top student and the human who, against every expectation, refused to be defeated. The academy announced a new challenge that had every student buzzing with excitement and anxiety. It was a zero-gravity obstacle course, designed to test not only agility but strategy, endurance, and quick thinking. The course was full of shifting platforms, spinning energy barriers, and rotating tunnels that would throw off even the most experienced students. Completing it was a feat few could manage, and Lyra was determined to come first as always. Ethan stood at the starting line, quiet and focused. His small frame looked even weaker in the heavy suit designed for zero-gravity movement. Lyra glanced at him and smirked. "This is going to be easy," she whispered to herself. "He won't even finish it." Her friends chuckled beside her, sharing her confidence. The starting signal sounded, and the students launched into the course. Lyra moved like a streak of silver, her alien reflexes allowing her to dodge the barriers effortlessly and leap from platform to platform with precise timing. She glanced back briefly, expecting to see Ethan struggling far behind. Instead, she saw him carefully adjusting to the floating platforms, calculating each jump and movement. He stumbled at first, hitting a spinning barrier and nearly spinning out of control. Lyra felt a pang of satisfaction, expecting him to give up, but he didn't. He rose slowly, brushing himself off, and continued. Every fall was met with calm resolve. Every mistake was studied and corrected. Step by step, he moved through the eye. Obstacles slower than most students, but steadily and methodically. Lyra's silver eyes widened. This human boy was enduring. The alien students whispered among themselves. "Look at him, he's still moving," one said. "Humans are supposed to be weak." Lyra's laughter faltered. She didn't understand it herself, but something about watching Ethan persevere made her chest tighten. Her pride, her certainty, her mockery, all of it felt hollow. She kept moving, faster than him, but every glance back reminded her that he was not giving up. At one point, a massive spinning tunnel loomed ahead. Lyra jumped with perfect timing, but a miscalculation sent her sliding off the platform for a brief second. Ethan, small and awkward, calculated the same obstacle differently. He used the tunnel's rotation to propel himself forward and landed safely on the other side. Lyra's eyes widened in disbelief. How had he done that? Step by step, obstacle by obstacle, Ethan pressed forward. He wasn't fast or flashy. He didn't make the impressive moves that the aliens admired, but he completed the impossible. He kept moving when others might have panicked. He solved problems with patience, and he learned from every mistake instantly. When he crossed the final platform, he was not first, but he had finished. And in the academy, finishing the course was more impressive than winning it outright. Whispers ran through the students. Did he really just finish? A human? He didn't cheat. He just adapted. Lyra stared at him, frozen. Her pride screamed at her to laugh, to make a joke, to show she was still superior, but her mind refused. She realized that strength could come in many forms. Humans might not have the reflexes, the speed, or the advanced alien physiology, but they had something else: endurance, resilience, and an unshakable spirit. Ethan caught his breath, looking around at the other students. His face was calm, even kind. He didn't gloat. He didn't boast. He simply returned to the sidelines, adjusting his suit and preparing for the next exercise. Lyra found herself staring at him, a mix of astonishment and something she didn't expect: admiration. Her friends nudged her, whispering, "He's just a human. Don't tell me you're impressed. Lyra didn't answer. She couldn't. Watching Ethan had shaken her belief in what was strong and what was weak. She realized that humans were different. Not weaker, not fragile. They were persistent, patient, and capable of surprising greatness. That evening, Lyra couldn't stop thinking about him. She saw him in every challenge she faced, in every exercise she completed. Something about Ethan's calm, unyielding determination had left an impression on her. For the first time, she understood that her mockery, her pride, even her accomplishments could never define real strength. Ethan had shown her something far greater than skill. He had shown her spirit. And Lyra, who had once thought of herself as invincible, now felt the stirrings of a new feeling. Respect, curiosity, and perhaps the faintest hint of awe. The Academy's lights glimmered under the stars outside, reflecting in Lyra's silver eyes. She realized for the first time that strength wasn't always loud, flashy, or easy to measure. Sometimes it was quiet. Sometimes it was human. And for Lyra, that quiet strength was about to change everything she thought she knew. The following evening, the Academy's training hall was quieter than usual. Most students had gone to their rooms or were practicing in small groups, but Lyra wandered through the hall, her mind restless. She could not stop thinking about Ethan. His calm strength, his patience, his ability to rise again and again despite mistakes. It haunted her. As she passed the far corner, she noticed Ethan sitting with a small group of students. They were not laughing or competing. Instead, they were quietly talking, and Lyra, curious despite herself, slowed down to listen. "I come from Earth," Ethan said softly, almost as if he were speaking to himself. "It's a small planet, very old, full of stories. We didn't have advanced ships or alien technology like this academy. We survived because we had to, because we learned to never give up no matter what happened." Lyra froze. Earth. The name was unfamiliar to most students at the academy, and it sounded fragile, even primitive. Yet Ethan spoke with pride. There was no boasting, no arrogance, only quiet confidence. His words carried weight, and Lyra could feel it. "One of our cities was destroyed by a massive storm," Ethan continued. "Most of the population was lost, but we rebuilt it. Another time, a disease took half of our people, and we found ways to survive. Our history is full of disasters, wars, and challenges that could have ended us. But we endured. And we kept learning, growing, helping each other. That's why I'm here. That's why I try so hard." Lyra's silver eyes widened. She had mocked him, laughed at him, and believed he was weak. And yet here he was, speaking calmly about survival against impossible odds. She realized for the first time that his resilience was not just personal. It was the legacy of his people. Every small, persistent effort he made came from generations of humans who refused to be broken. She stepped back, her chest tightening. She had always measured strength by speed, reflexes, or brilliance. Humans, she realized, were different. They were not the fastest, the smartest, or the most agile, but their strength was deeper, quieter, and more enduring. Lyra thought about the zero-gravity obstacle course. How Ethan had fallen again and again, yet completed it. How he had solved problems in ways no one else could. It wasn't luck or coincidence. It was the result of a lifetime and a species' history of overcoming impossible challenges. Her cheeks burned as shame mixed with awe. She remembered the laughter she had thrown at him, the whispers with her friends, the mocking gestures. She had thought herself clever, superior, untouchable. But Ethan had been carrying something she could never have imagined, an unbreakable spirit that no alien skill could match. The students around him laughed quietly at small jokes, but Ethan remained calm, kind, and focused. Even when someone tripped or made a mistake, he offered encouragement instead of ridicule. Lyra realized that humans had not only endured, they had learned empathy, patience, and courage. the qualities of someone truly strong beyond mere skill. For the first time, Lyra felt her heart shift. The mockery, the pride, even the confidence that had always defined her. It all felt hollow compared to what she now saw in Ethan. She wanted to look away, to hide her feelings, but she could not. Something inside her was changing. Finally, Ethan finished speaking and the small group went their separate ways. Lyra lingered, staring at the empty spot he had left. She realized she had been given a lesson she would never forget. Strength was not always visible, not always loud, and not always fast. Sometimes it came quietly, in the form of patience, endurance, and an unyielding heart. As she walked back toward her room, Lyra felt tears prick at her eyes, not of sadness, but of awe and shame, respect and admiration all mixed into one. She had mocked someone she did not understand, and now she knew the truth. Ethan was extraordinary. Not because of skill or speed or alien abilities, but because he carried the weight of his people's survival, and he refused to be broken. That night, Lyra lay awake in her room, staring at the faint stars beyond the academy's walls. She thought of Ethan's words, his calm determination and the quiet strength that radiated from him. Something inside her was changing. For the first time, she understood that humans, small, fragile, and underestimated, could be more powerful than anyone had imagined. And deep in her chest, a small voice whispered a new truth. She had been wrong to mock him. The next morning, Lyra felt different. She walked through the academy halls, her silver eyes observing everything with a new awareness. The chatter of students, the clatter of training equipment, even the gleam of the polished floors all seemed sharper, more alive. And in every moment she found herself thinking of Ethan. At first she tried to ignore it. She told herself that humans were still small, weak and slow. Yet as she passed him in the hall, she caught sight of his calm expression. The way he carried himself with quiet determination, despite the whispers and laughter of other students. Her chest tightened. For the first time she felt respect, and maybe something even deeper. Training that day was intense. The instructors announced a new exercise, paired combat simulations. Each student had to work with a partner to overcome obstacles, combining strategy, strength, and timing. Lyra's heart sank when she saw the pairing list she had been assigned to Ethan. She approached him with a faint smirk, trying to hide her unease. "Ready to fail again?" she said lightly. Her words were sharper than she intended. Ethan looked at her, calm and patient. "We'll do our best," he said simply. No anger, no hesitation, just steady reassurance. Lyra felt a small jolt of surprise. She wasn't used to being spoken to this way without judgment or sarcasm. The simulation began. Floating platforms, moving walls, and energy barriers surrounded them. Lyra started aggressively, her reflexes sharp, her moves precise. Ethan followed her lead, carefully calculating each movement, adapting to her style. When she misjudged a leap and nearly fell, he caught her gently with his hand, steadying her. She froze for a second, eyes wide. He didn't mock her, didn't scold her. He simply helped. "Thank you," she muttered quietly, almost embarrassed. "You're welcome," he replied with a small, genuine smile. As they progressed, Lyra began to notice something remarkable. Ethan didn't just react, he planned. He predicted obstacles, adjusted to sudden changes, and offered suggestions that improved their teamwork. His patience and persistence made her realize that his strength wasn't just about endurance. It was about thinking, observing, and never giving up. For the first time, Lyra worked with someone as a partner rather than a competitor. She realized how her pride had blinded her to true strength. It wasn't about speed, agility, or flashy moves. True strength was quiet, resilient, and unwavering, just like Ethan had shown. By the end of the simulation, they completed the course faster than most other pairs. The instructors nodded with approval, praising their teamwork. Lyra felt a strange mixture of pride and humility. She had succeeded, yes, but she had learned something far more important. respect for someone she had once considered weak. Later, during a break, she watched Ethan encourage a younger student who had struggled with a difficult exercise. His words were patient, his guidance gentle. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest, a realization that humans were not only strong in spirit, they were capable of inspiring others, of lifting others when they fell. That evening, as she trained alone, Lyra reflected on the day. Her mockery of Ethan now felt shameful. She had laughed at someone she did not understand. She had assumed weakness where there was courage, perseverance, and intelligence. Lyra clenched her fists, not in anger, but in determination. She wanted to be worthy of working alongside Ethan, to match his patience and strength. For the first time, she didn't want to be superior just because she was faster or more agile. She wanted to be stronger in a way that mattered, strong in spirit and heart and endurance. When she returned to her room, she found herself thinking about him again. The quiet human who had refused to break, who had faced every challenge with calm determination, who had taught her a lesson she would never forget. She realized she had begun to care, not in a simple friendship sense, but in a deeper, respectful way. Lyra finally admitted it to herself. Ethan had changed her. Her pride, her mockery, her sense of superiority, it was fading, replaced with admiration and a desire to learn from him. Humans were not what she expected. They were far stronger than anyone had realized. And in the quiet of the academy night, Lyra understood something she had never known before. Sometimes the greatest lessons came from those you least expected, from the ones who seemed weak, fragile, or ordinary, but who carried the heart of generations and the power of enduring spirit. For Lyra, Ethan was no longer just a human student. He was a teacher, a partner, and a mirror showing her what true strength really meant. The Academy's instructors announced a special mission that had every student buzzing with excitement and tension. It was not a simple training exercise. This was a team mission set in a simulated asteroid field, designed to test strategy, trust, and survival skills under pressure. Each pair would have to navigate the dangerous terrain, avoid collapsing asteroids, and complete objectives without failing. Mistakes could mean instant failure. Lyra's heart raced when she saw the pairing list. She and Ethan were partners once again. At first, a flash of old pride made her want to take control, to lead without listening. But she had changed. She had seen his strength, his patience, and his unbreakable spirit. This time she was ready to work with him, not against him. The asteroid field was massive, with tumbling rocks, shifting debris, and unpredictable gravitational pockets. Lyra leapt from one floating platform to another with her usual agility. But she noticed Ethan scanning every movement, predicting hazards she hadn't even considered. "Careful on that one," he said calmly, pointing to a loose rock spinning in their path. "If we time it wrong, it'll push us off course." Lyra's eyes widened. She had relied on instinct and reflex for years. But here was someone who thought 2 steps ahead, quiet and patient. She nodded, trusting him for the first time. Together they navigated the course. Lyra's speed and agility complemented Ethan's careful planning. When a massive asteroid threatened to block their path, Lyra jumped high to move it aside, while Ethan calculated the exact trajectory to stabilize their landing platform. Their teamwork was seamless, even though they had just begun. Halfway through the mission, a sudden collapse of a platform sent Lyra spinning dangerously into a debris field. Panic flared, but Ethan reached for her immediately, his hand steady and sure, and pulled her to safety. His calm focus steadied her racing heart. For the first time, Lyra felt a surge of trust that went beyond skill or pride. She knew that Ethan had her back no matter what. "Thanks," she breathed, shaking slightly. "Always," he replied with a quiet smile. As they continued, Lyra noticed something remarkable. Other students were panicking, miscalculating, or failing outright. Some had superior speed, some had advanced alien reflexes, but none could match the combination of human patience and resilience. Ethan moved carefully yet decisively while Lyra adapted instantly to his planning. Step by step, obstacle by obstacle, they overcame challenges that would have defeated most other pairs. By the end of the mission, Lyra realized something she hadn't before. Strength was not only about skill or speed or physical superiority. It was about teamwork, endurance, patience, and the quiet confidence to keep moving when everything seemed impossible. Ethan had shown her that humans, underestimated for so long, carried that strength naturally. When they finally crossed the finish line, they had completed the course faster and more efficiently than any other pair. The instructors nodded with approval, but Lyra barely heard them. Her eyes were on Ethan, and she felt a warmth she could not describe. Respect had grown into admiration, and admiration was slowly turning into something deeper, a recognition of the extraordinary spirit humans carried. Later, as they walked back through the halls, Lyra spoke softly. I underestimated you." Ethan looked at her calmly. "It's okay, most do. But you didn't stay that way. You learned," Lyra nodded. She realized that this mission had changed her not just in skill but in perspective. She had laughed at him once, mocked his weaknesses, and believed herself stronger. Now she understood that strength was far more than appearances or agility. Humans endured, adapted, and inspired, and that made them extraordinary. That night, Lyra sat by the observation deck, staring at the stars above the academy. Ethan's words, his calm determination, his patience, and his courage echoed in her mind. She thought of the lessons she had learned, of her own pride, and of the quiet power humans carried within themselves. For the first time, she felt a deep sense of humility and gratitude. She had been given a gift, the chance to see humanity in its truest form, to witness resilience, courage, and kindness in a single student who had once seemed weak. And as Lyra looked across the hall where Ethan trained quietly, she realized something important. Human strength was not just about surviving challenges. It was about inspiring others, standing firm when the odds were impossible, and lifting those around them. Lyra smiled softly to herself. She had begun as someone who mocked, who judged, who believed herself superior. Now she had become someone who respected, admired, and wanted to learn. And for her, that was a lesson more powerful than any obstacle course or training simulation could ever teach. The stars shone above, and Lyra knew that humanity, small but unyielding, had earned a place among the greatest in the galaxy, and she was proud to witness it. The semester was ending, and the academy was alive with excitement. Awards would be given, instructors would praise accomplishments, and students would reflect on what they had learned. Lyra walked through the halls, her silver eyes thoughtful, her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. She thought of Ethan, of the calm human who had refused to break, who had endured, adapted, and inspired everyone around him. Today, the instructors had arranged a final demonstration, a complex simulation combining every skill the students had learned: combat, strategy, teamwork, and endurance. Each student would be evaluated, but more importantly, they would show what they had learned from each other. Lyra and Ethan were paired once again. This time she felt no prideful arrogance, no mockery, only respect and quiet determination. The simulation began. The environment was chaotic. Tumbling asteroids, shifting platforms, energy barriers, and unexpected hazards. Lyra moved with precision, her alien agility unmatched, but she trusted Ethan completely. Every time he suggested a move, a path, a calculation, she followed without hesitation. His calm voice guided her through the chaos, his foresight saving them from dangers that might have crushed other pairs. At one point, a massive energy barrier threatened to trap them. Lyra panicked for a brief second, but Ethan stayed calm. "Step to the left and wait for my mark," he said. She followed, and when the barrier shifted, they passed through safely. It was a small moment, but it symbolized everything Lyra had learned: trust, patience, and the quiet strength humans carried. Step by step, obstacle by obstacle, they advanced. Lyra noticed how the other students struggled with panic, arrogance, or impatience. They had speed, agility, or advanced reflexes, but they lacked the endurance, focus, and adaptability that Ethan displayed naturally. Humans might appear small or weak, she realized, but their hearts were unbreakable. When they finally reached the final platform, they did not just finish, they excelled. The instructors nodded in approval, their voices echoing praise through the hall. Lyra felt a swell of pride, but it was different now. It was not pride in her superiority. It was pride in having learned, in having grown, and in witnessing something extraordinary. After the simulation, the students gathered in the central hall. Awards were given, but Lyra's attention was on Ethan. She walked up to him, her chest tight with emotion, her silver eyes shining with newfound understanding. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" Ethan asked, his calm expression gentle, curious. "For showing me what humans can really do," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I laughed at you, mocked you, thought you were weak. But now I see. Humanity is stronger than I ever imagined." Ethan smiled. "Sometimes strength isn't about being the fastest or the smartest or the strongest. It's about standing up when everyone expects you to fail. It's about keeping going when the odds are against you. That's what humans do." Lyra nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. She realized that she had learned more than any skill or technique during her time at the academy. She had learned about courage, perseverance, and the unbreakable human spirit. Humans could endure what others could not. Humans could inspire, adapt, and survive against impossible odds. Around them, the other students watched, some curious, some surprised. They had seen Ethan's quiet strength, and many of them felt it too. A newfound respect for a species they had underestimated for generations. Lyra took a deep breath, feeling pride not for herself but for the human beside her. "Humans are amazing," she whispered, "and I'm proud to know one." Ethan nodded, his smile calm but filled with warmth. Together they looked out at the stars beyond the academy walls. Lyra felt a surge of hope and determination. She understood now that strength was not just skill, speed, or reflexes. It was heart, spirit, and resilience. And in that moment she knew humanity would never be underestimated again. As the Academy's lights shimmered like distant galaxies, Lyra realized something profound. She had been given the gift of seeing humanity at its finest. She had seen courage where others saw weakness, persistence where others saw fragility, and hope where others saw despair. Humans were small, perhaps even fragile in appearance, but their hearts were boundless, their spirits unyielding, and their potential limitless. Lyra turned to Ethan, her heart full of admiration and respect. She had begun this journey mocking him, doubting him, and underestimating him. She ended it inspired, humbled, and awed, and she knew this was just the beginning for him, for her, and for all the galaxy yet to see what humanity could achieve. The stars above glimmered brighter than ever, and Lyra whispered softly, more to herself than anyone else, "Humans, you truly are extraordinary." And with that she smiled, knowing she had witnessed the power of humanity firsthand, and it was a force that no one could ever ignore.